Hello and welcome to Uncovered, the podcast with your host, Jason Irving. Join me in a journey to understand what's truly happening in your world and the world around you. This is not about how you're living life on the surface. It's about what's truly driving you from under the covers. I'm going to take you on a journey to deeply uncover the reason why you are here, the ultimate purpose in your problems and the way that they have shaped your life up until now. See, I believe you have a purpose, and your problems are the highway towards ultimate realization of that journey towards freedom and the reconnection of your true self. I've been told I have a different spin on most things, and I'll be giving you my understanding of life, love, and what we're all here for, purpose. To get the best out of this podcast, drop what you already know so you can discover what's beyond you. So join me, let's play this game of life and bring on liberation, transformation, and change. Let's do this.
Hey Jason, how are you today?
Yeah, pretty good. How are you?
I'm good too, thanks. So we're going to talk about hate now.
Yeah, so we just did a podcast on love, and I thought I'd back it up with the other side of the coin, hate.
Yeah.
And it's pretty much the same energy as love. There's no difference. It's just sitting on the other end of the spectrum, and quite often a lot of emotions are sitting in the middle of these. So anger, frustration is sitting on the hate side. Love, care, nurture is sitting on
the love side.
On the love side. So hate is probably one of the scariest energies on the planet. Scariest emotions on the planet, because if we don't have it tamed, this is where we can murder. This is where we can really hurt someone, and we can destroy people. And we can destroy relationships through hate without even knowing that we're hating someone. So being a therapist for such a long period of time, I've worked with a lot of hate in the work that I used to do, and in the academy as well. And hate's one of those things that we just don't want to share. We don't want to admit we have it. We don't want anyone to know that it's there, especially if we're nice and kind. And we either self-detonate, so we hate ourselves for whatever reason, and we also project that hate onto other people. So, for example, we could hate people who ruin the environment. We could hate people who believe in spaceships, right? Why do we do this?
Because we just have a different opinion, I guess. And
yeah. So having a different opinion is actually the way that we can use hate, right? So when we have the same opinion, we love. We're all on the same page. If we have a different opinion, then we can use the different opinion as an excuse
for hate. Yeah.
For hate. So a lot of the time, especially what's happening at the moment with COVID, people are not happy. There's a lot of hate. There's a lot of suicides. Hate can lead to suicide, puts you into depression if you don't know how to work with it well. So there's so many things that hate can supply and create problems. So what we've got to learn to be able to do around it is figure out how to accept it and accept ourselves through it. So what I've taught people in the academy is that if they're struggling with love and they're not really good with love, they quite often accept hate more than they do love.
Yeah, it's a very interesting point, I think.
Yeah.
How they sit on different ends, and then when you have difficulties with one, you're good with the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So people who are really focused on love, and this is really, really important to them, and they help people with love. Anytime I've challenged them, they've gotten really angry at me. It's really interesting now, and I look and I go, oh, there's the hate. Just because I said I didn't agree with you.
Yeah.
right? And then the hate comes, oh, you don't agree with me, blah, blah, blah. And then I was just like, whoa, okay, cool. So obviously hasn't been worked on very well because someone's just different opinion created hate. So if we look at, you know, things like Black Lives Matter and all of these things that can create division in our world, I'm not saying one's right or one's wrong. There's one side that says Black Lives Matter and there's people who say all lives matter, and
then they get angry
at each other
and hate each other
and basically it's hate that's creating this problem. So imagine being in a war-torn country where one country has killed your parents. So what are you naturally going to do?
Oh, you're going to hate that country.
You're going to hate that country. You're going to hate those people for the reason of death and the mutilation. So what if someone raped your mum?
Well, you'd hate that person as well.
Yeah. And you'd say, okay, rapists are bad and all of these things. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying what elicits it. And so what we'll do is we'll create experiences and we'll decide, again, with our rules structures around, well, what are we allowed to hate and what allows us to bring that up. You know, if you think about a relationship when you love someone and they break up with you, and you're the breaker-upper, and the breaker-upperee is more likely to what? They're more likely to hate
Absolutely.
the other person. I had this experience. I said to a person who I left, I said to her, I still love you. And she said to me, I have to hate you.
Oh, wow. That's pretty interesting.
And I walked away from that situation and I realised that because she couldn't be with me, she had to hate me. They were her rules.
Wow.
It's pretty interesting, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So how we can end up hating something that we don't get to have anymore.
I think, like both is possible. You know, you can still love someone and cherish whatever you had and break up, but you could also go into like, I hate you, I don't want anything to do with you ever again.
Yeah, that's right. And look, with particular experiences that I've had, I've learned over time with just behaviours that I've received, to hate someone. And I was actually quite excited. I was just like, oh, this is awesome. I can actually hate someone and feel okay with it. It's okay for me to hate someone and not call it wrong, right? Because what we do in the academy is just accept that that's there. Because the only way that we can return to balance is actually accept every emotion that exists. So when I got to hate someone in my life, I was actually really proud of myself. I was like, oh, this is good, because I can really hate someone. And then what do we do when we hate someone? We think pretty tough thoughts about them.
Yeah.
Right? We think, you know, one of my things I quite often laugh at in the academy is that, you know, people burying someone alive so the ants will eat them, you know, or the animals will eat them, but they're alive while they're being eaten. So something really gruesome. And, you know, if we think about the archaic ages where people were put on a cross, or people were actually put on an X, which was even worse. So they used to put people on an X. They'd put them up like this with their legs apart, and then people would hit them and knife them and do all stuff to them as they were walking around the villages.
Wow.
And it was really, really
That's
nasty. So crosses were
hate.
very, very rare. X's were the normal thing that happened in the time of Jesus. So people who got put up on a cross, there was probably a bit more significance to those people. Most people just got put up on X's because they couldn't afford to do the crosses. And so the amount of hate that existed back then was huge, and I think there's far less of that now. Or we're able to manage our emotions far better than we've ever done before, because we're not nailing someone to a cross or stoning them to death we're not eating them, we're not eating their eyeballs because they're our assailant, which is what happens from the the islander cultures used to do this. Fiji, when I went over there, they would talk about how they would the king would eat the eyeballs of their assailant, and believing that the more eyeballs they ate, the more powerful they were. So very, very interesting around how we utilise and justify hate and the reasons why we should hate, don't we?
Absolutely, yeah.
So, judgment, turning your nose down at something, saying this is not okay, now I get to hate. And I spent a lot of time with activists when I was a lot younger, when I was a little bit more hippie based. And there was a lady who actually said to me, I stopped being an activist after a while because I realised the damage it was supplying my kids, because they were very angry kids, because she was angry, because she hated what was happening to the planet. So she was constantly trying to put herself in front of trees with the loggers and all of those sorts of things, and she created really, really angry kids. She felt really bad about it. So it's pretty amazing to have someone be able to realise their hate was creating a problem more systemically with her family than the cause that she was trying to stop.
Wow, that's really interesting, isn't it? How that gets taken to the children as well. So how do you work with hate?
Look, what I do is I try and look for memories. I try and look for things that will elicit that emotion. I quite often try to do it when I'm in good shape. So today, I'm in pretty good shape today. So I would actually try and meditate on things that I'm struggling with in the world. The way people treat people. The way people like today. I sort of struggled today. There was something that really frustrated me, and I got angry, and I could feel that hate for a little while, but ultimately I was sad, and this was the kangaroos getting culled in Canberra. And I put a post up today around this, and I find this devastating. So more of me was sad around our human nature just to kill something because we think we should. For numbers, and I wanted to hate. I was so angry. Ultimately, I think hate can be a disguise sometimes for deep sadness, and a way that we can project and hide our sadness and protect it.
Because hate is a bit more like anger based, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and sadness quite often sits under there, and sadness and hate, when they're together, create depression. And that creates suicide. So when they're together, they hand clap and create more problems if we don't know how to manage them well. So what I do is I try to look at situations, people not being in integrity, people taking people away from their pathway, manipulating people. I try to find something that I can bring up that sort of real rage and hate, and then try and spend time with it, and just understand how to work with it. Because once you actually can work with the hate, it's a very strong movement-based energy. So a lot of the frustration energies and the anger, they're really, really, really powerful to move. Loves can be a little bit inert because it's like you're the finished product, so you don't have to move too much. So you can sit in love and not move so much sometimes, whereas hate is quite often a movement-based energy. So we can use that in a really creative way to build what we want to build on the planet. So I used to do this all quite often when people would tell me I couldn't do something. So I was told by my auntie that I'd never make it in life, that I'd just have a dead-end job and nothing. I'd never come out of anything. My college teacher told me I wouldn't make it through uni. I wasn't smart enough.
Wow. And what did you do?
I went to uni and finished a degree. So I said, well, watch this. I use that anger and hate to actually prove someone wrong, instead of use that anger and hate to prove them right and go down a really shitty path, which a lot of people can do. When someone says, oh, well, you can't do this. Oh, okay, well, I can't. Right?
Yeah.
So I'd use people as a dartboard. And then when I became, when I was in the profession of IT, a couple of guys said I wasn't smart enough there. I wasn't good enough. I was never going to make enough money. Look at this guy. And I ended up I listened to that and I became a contractor, a really well paid one. Right, so every time someone told me I couldn't, I actually used it as a proving mechanism. Right, so when I wanted to be a healer, it was the same. People were telling me, you can't do it. What are you doing? So I used that hate and frustration and anger and all that energy to actually prove someone wrong. Right? Wow. And then that sort of lost its context after a while. I realised that I could use the energy and not need someone outside of me to build it for me. So I learnt to build and harness that feeling and energy without having to have someone outside of me create a division inside of me to prove something. And which is what a lot of people do when they're trying to prove that they're good enough in some way, shape or form to somebody else. So I don't do that anymore. It's a really good way to start. And someone tells you can't. What do you do if someone tells you can't?
I think I am more on the give up side, but it always depends on who it is.
Yeah.
I guess with some people I would be like you and be like, okay, like let me prove you wrong. And then with others I would be like, okay, I'll just give up. Like if they say I can't, then I probably can't. So it always depends a bit on who it is.
Okay. So yeah, and it comes down to maybe the respect of the person telling you information.
Yeah.
Maybe.
That's true.
So I think what's really, really important here, guys, is to not think that it's not in you as well.
Everyone has some.
Everyone has it, and you can't run away from it. It's in you. The amount of development work that I've done, I can't run away from it. Wholeness is every emotion. So hate is a very important one to discover and spend time with, and let it become something of value. And once you actually don't call it wrong, you don't end up feeling and hate for very long. Once you engage with it, it actually disperses very, very quickly. And in those moments, if you can spend time with it when you're in good shape, rather than going, I just want to connect to love and light, you can connect to hate and anger when you're in good shape. When something comes at you that you would normally have a problem with, it ceases to be one. And that's what's really cool when you get to work with it. It ceases to elicit reactions and issues around what is going on for you in your world.
So it's really handy to work on it, really.
Yeah, and instead of running away.
Yeah, which is probably the thing that most people are trying to do.
Yeah, people are just looking for the love drug. They're looking for the happiness. They're looking for the joy. And hate is a volume of energy. It's got so much energy to it because it can move mountains. And when you use it and you move it and you place it in the right place, it can really create change in your life. It's just how you look. I think people just get so fixated on particular emotions that are okay, and they're, again, judging the ones that are not as wrong. And I know from working with people for so long is that the moment you don't judge an emotion as wrong, it disperses and becomes okay, and we start integrating rather than disintegrating, which is, hate's a disintegration type of emotion when you don't accept it as a part of you. Cool.
Well, that's really good. So we can use our hate to actually create the life that we want.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you.
End up being okay.
Thank you for sharing this.
Yeah, no worries, Philia. So guys, if you like this one, this might be a little bit edgy. The love one is there as well. So have a look at both of these. I think they're both essential. Hopefully you got something out of this, especially for people who have struggles with self-hate. Give this to them so they can have a listen to it and see if they can actually work with this a little bit differently and comprehend that it's okay for them to have it. And if you have it, it's okay. You just got to understand what to do with it. I'm not telling you to go and kill someone. I'm just getting you to understand that it's there. Okay, and spend time with it. So if you really like this podcast, I'd love it if you could like and review it. Any review is a good review. I don't mind what you say. It's just hopefully you get some value out of this, and if it pushed a button, that's awesome. Now, if you want to watch this podcast, it's www.wellnessbreakthroughacademypodcast.com. So if you want to watch it, you can. Thanks so much for jumping on and listening today.
Thank you.